Intimacy Beyond Relationships, and we will have our professionals speaking with us today. I'd like to welcome Tanique Gentles. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, sex therapist, and we will be exploring relationship topics in regards to intimacy beyond sex. Welcome, Tanique.
Thank you.
Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, about what your profession is, what your experience has been before we dive into this taboo topic?
Sure. So I have been in the field for 18 years as a licensed marriage and family therapist. I started out working with high-risk adolescents for a while, did a lot of family work, and when I got into private practice, I started seeing more couples and became more interested in doing couples work. Once I started seeing couples, I noticed that the elephant in the room was sex, and people really struggled with talking about sex, addressing sex. Sex was very taboo. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more. My supervisor is a sex therapist, a certified sex therapist, and I was talking to him about it. He was like, I think you should get into sex therapy. So I arrived here as a sex therapist. I work with individuals who are dealing with sexual issues and disorders, some identity stuff around sex, and couples who have desire discrepancy and are into exploring diverse relationships, so swinging, poly, open relationships. So that's a little bit about what I'm doing now in private practice.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Tanique, for sharing a little bit about your background. And so I started off with saying that this topic is such a taboo topic, and people tend to have a lot of discomfort and fear about sex. Where do you think that comes from? Like, why do you think it's such a taboo topic when majority of everybody's doing it?
That's the question that I have. I think it's the way you've been socialized around sex. There's a lot of negativity around sex. A lot of people come from homes where you don't talk about sex. Sex was never mentioned. If you look at Black and brown communities, what the church has taught you about sex, what media has taught you about sex, it's just one of those things that you don't talk about, even though you do it. But I think there are a lot of risks around not having conversations about sex.
Sure.
But hopefully this conversation will change the way people view sex.
Yeah. So our topic is about intimacy beyond sex. So when we talk about intimacy, what are we really talking about?
So there are different types of intimacy. You can focus on emotional intimacy. You can focus on spiritual intimacy. You can focus on experiential intimacy. There's digital intimacy. There is a lot of intimacy beyond sex. You do need some type of emotional connection. Well, let me not say you do need, but if you're in a relationship, a secure relationship, some of the requirements are some type of emotional intimacy so that sex can happen. But there are different layers of intimacy. It absolutely does not have to be physical.
What do you think when you find couples who often assume that intimacy and sex are the same thing?
I think sometimes with couples, the way that they connect with each other is through sex. I think a lot of people connect through sex and they haven't learned how to find other ways to connect. So sex is that thing that keeps them connected, especially if you are living busy lives. So you go to work, you're getting the kids ready for school, you are on different schedules. You're not finding that much time throughout the day to connect with each other. So when we do connect, more than likely it's at night, and the expectation is that we have sex. So a lot of people struggle with understanding there's a lot of other things that need to happen to create that physical intimacy. So they just assume that sex is the answer to keep things connected, but you have to have other layers of intimacy or other different types of intimacy for sex to happen.
Would you be able to share with our audience what are some examples of how a couple could build upon their intimacy outside of sex?
So when you think about like modern relationships, right, one of the ways that I think modern relationships are different than traditional relationships are that you have digital intimacy. So people are more comfortable. Yeah, I
down
am.
because
I'm break it
okay.
down. Digital intimacy is using memes, using voice notes,
Okay.
sending
You educating
intimate
me because I'm like, what is all of this? Okay.
sending intimate text messages, long text messages that have depth, sending each other memes, different ways of connecting through through media, through digital, right?
Okay.
And that is intimacy, which is a lot different than what traditional relationships would do. So you have your digital intimacy, you have experiential intimacy, which is the things that we do together. We cook, we travel, we develop a hobby together. We go out, we explore things together. Then you have your spiritual intimacy, which is, how you think about things, how you are, what's your philosophy around life? What's your philosophy around change? Do you have religious beliefs? How we connect around deep conversations. That will be like your spiritual intimacy. And then, of course, you have your emotional intimacy, which is how we have conversations, how we connect with each other, how we talk about our needs, how we express our love to each other. So those are the different types of intimacy that do exist beyond sex.
Do you feel like couples struggle to articulate what they really want in a relationship when it comes to intimacy and also sex? And then we'll get a little bit into trauma in a minute. But do you feel like it's a challenge for them to be able to do that?
It absolutely is a challenge, and I think it's because most people don't know what they want.
Say that again.
If you don't know what you want, then you can't communicate to your partner what it is that you want, right? And then there's also this shame piece around it too. Like if I communicate what I really want and what I really like, is my partner going to accept that or reject me? So people also don't communicate out of that fear of rejection. But absolutely, I think that it's important to communicate with your partner, but I think it doesn't happen because people don't know how to express their needs because a lot of people have not identified their own needs. I work with tons of couples and I'll say, what is it that you want from your partner? And there's like 10 minutes of silence. Like, what are your needs? Have you expressed your needs to your partner? There's 10 minutes of silence. Or I'll ask a question, what do you need? Why don't you turn to them and tell them what you need? 10 minutes of silence, right?
Yeah.
So people have a really hard time identifying what they need and they can't communicate that to the person they're with.
And so what role do you feel like trauma plays into intimacy and then sexuality in a relationship?
Sure. So if I may, I'll give an example. I'm working with a couple and the husband has a kink. He has a kink and his kink is aggressive sex. So he wants to be...
Describe what a kink means.
Sure.
Okay.
So a kink is something that a kink is different from a fetish in that it's something that is perceived to be not normal or not the norm that brings some type of arousal and stimulation. So a fetish is something that you would need to associate to experience and what's the word I'm looking for?
Connect, fulfill.
No, for you to have ejaculation or an orgasm or to follow through, right, to climax, right? A fetish is something that you would need. A kink, you don't necessarily need that to have the final act. It's just something that enhances the sexual experience, right?
Okay.
So for him, his kink was aggression. So he likes to be tied up. He likes to be smacked. He likes to be hit. He likes it rough, right? But his wife has had a significant sexual trauma history and is very uncomfortable with doing the things that he needs to create that level of intimacy in their relationship. And one of the issues is that he's having some performance anxiety. He's having some issues around erectile dysfunction. And these are some of the things that he needs to kind of get in the mood or to get aroused. But his wife is unfortunately unable to give that to him because of her own sexual trauma, right? So we've been working on how can we meet each other in the middle, right? Where he kind of understands what's happening for her and why she isn't able to meet this need. And also how she can or has addressed her own sexual trauma and how that comes up, because the flip side of it is that she also has a really hard time connecting and building that intimacy with him because of her trauma.
Yeah.
So you see trauma play out a lot. There's another couple I could think of who is a veteran and has a lot of PTSD. And since he came back home from being in the service, he has not been able to connect with his partner. And they're experiencing significant marital issues because he just has an emotional block, right? So the recommendation for him has been to get some type of EMDR treatment, something to work through that trauma and process that trauma so that he can show up for his wife in an emotional space. But trauma plays a significant role in the bedroom, definitely does. Even when it comes to touch, all that stuff, it's very significant.
How often do you see the issue of body image showing up in the relationship, and how comfortable do you see your couples being able to address that with their partner?
So body image comes up. It comes up for a lot of reasons. I think if you're dealing with somebody who is female bodied, who might have had given birth, your body changes, right? You've gained weight. A lot of things have changed for you, and sometimes it's really hard for you to feel secure in your new body, right? So that impacts them wanting to have sex, that impacts them wanting to undress in front of their partner, and that's a hard conversation to have. I've also had it on the flip side where I've had male partners not be attracted to their partners anymore because their partners have gained weight or their body frame looks really different, right?
Yeah.
So these are conversations that we'll have around, like, what's the root of it? Where is this coming from? And it doesn't always have to be related to giving birth. It can be a lot of different things that impact body image. Just, if you're looking at media and what they say an average size body, especially for a female body, what that should look like, and you are curvy or plus size, that creates a lot of discrepancy in that as well. So it comes up a lot, especially in couples work.
How do you get your couples to lean into everything that you're saying without fear? How do you get them to do that?
I have a running joke with my couples, right? So when they come in, my joke is, we're not a throuple. Right? Okay. So consider me to be a part of this couple. Consider me to be a part of this relationship for the next 6 or however months you're working with me. So everything that you do in the bedroom, I'm included in it, right? So I create a lot of safety in that space so that they can feel really comfortable. I also do a sexual history, so that's how we start off, just kind of understanding what their ideas around sex, their comfort level around sex. But I spend a lot of time getting to know my couples before we dive into sex, because it has to be that level of safety, right? And once they become safe with me and there's a safe space in the room, they become more comfortable in expressing their sexual needs to each other and in the therapy space.
Okay. Thank you, Tanique, for that. What do you think about, everyone's been talking about attachment, and attachment being significantly important in a relationship. What role do you think it plays in this intimacy building, the sexuality? Like, why is attachment even significantly important?
I think attachment is controversial. I've heard a lot of sex therapists in my training that do not believe in attachment and do not see attachment as a part of sex work, especially since there are people who don't necessarily need to connect and be in relationship to have sex. There are people who actually enjoy casual sex. And I think if you're looking at that through an attachment lens, you can stigmatize someone, right? And say, well, they have an avoidant attachment, right? They have all these sexual partners, when that's not true. They just like having sex with different people. So I think attachment can be controversial. I do believe in attachment. I do believe in attachment work, attachment theory. But I think when it comes to sex and intimacy, there's a lot of wiggle room around it, put it like that.
Okay. And as far as the attachment, and you having some different views on it, and that there's some wiggle room in it, what are ways that you try to get couples to strengthen their relationship? So once they're able to resolve the sexual issues in their relationship, how else would you encourage them to strengthen their bond?
So I actually do the reverse. I have them strengthen their bond first before they work on their sexual issues, right? Because if you're not comfortable with your partner, or let's say there's tension with your partner or we're in conflict, I'm not going to want to have sex with you. Unless I'm someone that's sexual and I have to have my needs met, then I don't care how I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
I'm going to have sex, right? But for the most part, if you want to have an enjoyable sex life, you want to be in a good place with the person you're having sex with.
Yeah.
So the goal would be to work on strengthening the relationship first. So one of the things that I recommend, especially for my couples that have children, identify a bedtime, right? Get your kids down by 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock might be early, 7:30, right? And give yourself at least an hour in bed with your partner. And we're not talking about the children. We're not talking about work. We probably could say, how was your day, right? And process that. But we want to have meaningful conversations about us. How are you feeling about the relationship? How are you feeling about our sex life? Are there things that you want to explore in the bedroom? Is there a new restaurant you want to try, a new hobby that you want to try? But to take the focus off of the kids and put the focus on the marriage or the relationship, I think is really important, and a way that you can build intimacy. I think carving out some time just for you and your partner, so creating a date night. And a lot of couples assume that date night has to mean we go out somewhere. We don't have to go out. I tell my couples, create a fun night, a theme night at home. Have a movie night, have Chinese night, have Mexican night, right?
Okay.
And create a space at home. That way you don't have to think about finding a babysitter, or even if finances is an issue, at least you know we're doing it at home, but we're finding time to spend with each other.
Are there any tools that you encourage them to get or buy or have in their toolbox?
Yes, so I like Gottman cards, the Gottman deck. So building love maps, understanding how we connect, learning more about each other. I think there are tons of things that we don't know about our partners that we assume we know. I remember asking, I was working with a couple, and I'm like, what's their favorite dessert? And he says red velvet, and the wife is like, that is not my favorite dessert, right?
Okay.
So there's so many things to learn about each other. So I definitely recommend card decks. I give my couples assignments: go visit a porn shop, a toy shop. I'm sorry.
Real experiential. Okay.
Right. Go visit a toy shop. Go, try something different. Some other tools may be creating a night of intimacy, thinking about what they worked on in therapy. I always tell my clients, like, have that toolbox. Like, what are some of the things that we worked on here? Whether it's using I statements, whether it's learning how to be judgment-free towards each other, but have this toolbox to the side. That way you can go in there and pull out the different things that we worked on. But definitely toy shops. I assign movies, sensate focus techniques, different things that they can go back to that helps them to connect again.
So a couple more questions and then we'll be wrapping up for today.
Okay.
One of the questions that I wondered about is when you have a partner who may not be as open. So maybe one partner is like very open, they can say exactly what their needs are, but then there's a partner who may not be as open or might feel uncomfortable using like the word sex or asking for what they want. How do you support that particular partner in the therapeutic journey?
Sure. So one of the things that I'll explore with them is, what are their beliefs around sex? Like, how have they been socialized to think about sex? Does sex hold a negative stigma? Why is it so difficult for them to talk about sex? And I'll explore that with them. And I think once we get to the root of that and spend some time focusing on that, it makes it a little bit easier. But I think it's also having the partner create a safe space for their partner to be honest. Like, if you know that's something that they struggle with, they have to feel really safe to be able to express that, right? Sure. So what are some acceptance techniques, that they need to have? Whether you agree with what they're saying or not, you still need to be able to listen.
Sure.
And be less critical. I think practicing non-judgmental things like just letting them talk, helping them to use I statements, helping them to identify when they're feeling uncomfortable and why they're feeling uncomfortable. But again, usually I think it's just the idea of sex and what that means for them, just like what their thought around sex is and why it holds such a negative connotation. And being able to explore that makes it a little bit easier for the conversation to happen.
Thank you, Tanique. So, what I've heard from you today is that you want to normalize the experience for couples being able to come and talk about sex, and that sex goes just beyond just sex. It's intimacy, it's connection, it's spirituality, it's emotionality, intellectually. It's all of those components together. And if I heard you correct, you specialize in monogamous couples, poly couples, and am I leaving another
Poly
couple?
couples, any alternative lifestyle that's
Okay.
outside of the norm
Okay.
is what I work with. So
Okay.
poly, swinging, open,
Okay.
non-traditional.
Okay. And if people wanted to get in touch with you and be able to connect with you, whether through the capacity, because let's talk about it, Tanique, you have all these roles that you do. And so we know that you're an educator, we know that you're a supervisor, we know that you're a professor, we know that you're a certified sex therapist. So if anybody wanted to connect with Tanique and work with her, how should they go about finding you? Like, what should they do
Absolutely.
to connect with you?
Yeah, you could definitely find me through my website. I would say that's the easiest way if you're trying to book an appointment, right? If you're trying to book an appointment, you want to go to www.taginspires.org. If you just want to know what's going on with Tanique, where Tanique is, what Tanique likes, what sex she's talking about, you can follow me on Instagram at Tag Your Couples Therapist. Or like I said, you can visit the website.
Thank you, Tanique. And so we want to thank Tanique for coming out to our show. This was the revival of our Relationships 101 at LaSalle University's Marriage and Family Therapy program. We'll see you the next time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.